welcome back to the Skip's Tactical Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Avery, also known as Skip. This week's episode will be a solo mini episode, and it's going to be all about your why. But before we get into this week's episode, I just wanted to remind you that every week I will be shouting out one of you amazing listeners for leaving your rating and review in your podcast player. I can never thank you enough for taking the time out to not only listen to the episodes, but to also leave a rating and review in your podcast player. Your reviews give me so much fuel and joy, and they truly keep me going, especially when editing a podcast seems to kick my butt. So go ahead and leave Skip's Tactical Solutions podcast a 5-star review, and your review could be read next. And towards the end of this week's episode, I will read this week's review of the week. But one last thing, while you're listening, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified when new episodes are released. All right, so now let's jump into this week's episode. This week is all about going back to the basics. I wanted to focus on going back to the basics because I truly feel that not enough emphasis is placed on knowing the basics of shooting, carrying a firearm, and just having situational awareness. Something else that I don't think enough emphasis is placed on is knowing your why. If you're wondering what I mean by knowing your why, allow me to explain. Okay, so what exactly is a why? A why is your reason for doing a certain task. For example, what is your why for deciding to carry a firearm? If this is something that you've actually put some thought into, if not, why haven't you? Because knowing your why is extremely important in my opinion. And when I teach my classes, I always ask my students about their why. I encourage them to think about it because if carrying a gun is something that they're unsure of, something actually made them decide to take the class. Now let me stop and take a moment and ask you, what is your why? Feel free to send me a message on social media, tag me in a post, or send me an email telling me about your why. I know you're probably wondering, what is she talking about? Or why is she harping about a why? If you're wondering why, then you're in luck because I'm going to share my reason with you. Knowing your why will help you when times get tough. And when I say that, I mean when you don't want to carry a gun with you, when you don't want to spend the money to take a professional class, you can always reach back to your why and you can lean on it. You know what? I'll share my why for carrying a gun with you. I carry a gun because if and when the situation ever arises, I want to be able to protect myself and my family. That's very simple, right? And if you're still a little confused, I carry a gun because if someone was trying to harm me or my family, I want to be able to stop them with my gun, which is my equalizer. I want to be my own first responder. And as a mother, I feel like it's my duty to protect my children. And this past weekend, I was teaching a concealed carry class. And during the class, I was talking to my students about knowing their why and always being able to go back to their why when forced with a tough decision. And there was a husband and wife in the class. And the wife shared that her why was her children as well. And part of my why was my children. The husband said, "So what about us husbands? I guess we're just left to protect ourselves." And we all kind of laughed. But just like he noticed, I've also noticed that when people have children, that their children are typically part of their why they just decide to carry. Knowing your why isn't something that only applies to personal protection. Think about everything that you do in your life. You have a reason that you do it, and that's your why. You get to work on time because you don't want to get fired. You exercise and eat sensible because you want to be healthy and feel good in your clothes. Am I right? I'll share another why with you, and this one isn't gun related. Well, it is, but it's kind of personal. I started my firearms training business, Skip's Tactical Solutions, and my why was because I wanted to provide quality training to the average everyday person. And if I equip one person with a skill that they could use to save themselves or others, my mission would be a success. And I encounter so many people as an instructor, I never know who that one person is. And there's many times that I have to reach back to my reason why I started this business. Any entrepreneur or business owner can understand where I'm coming from on this. When times get rough and you want to stop, your why will remind you of why you started. For example, if your business isn't growing as quick as you would like it to, maybe it's time to do your taxes. Or you could just be tired and need some downtime, but you have a full weekend ahead of you. Your why will always help push you over that wall and get you through the hard times. Now let's get into this week's review of the week. This week's review of the week was left by Ashley Ingram in iTunes on November 15, 2018. And she was my very first review. So I would like to say thank you and major props for leaving the very first review. Her review said, "I absolutely love this episode. I completely agree with all the points Avery hit. As a female and a mom, I'm completely on board with safety and learning to shoot a firearm, along with teaching my children to safely shoot a gun. Thanks for an awesome episode. Can't wait to hear more." So Ashley, thank you so much for leaving your very detailed and kind review. And she was referring to the episode titled Reasons to Own a Firearm, which was episode 1. And I'm glad to hear that there's more women out there that's taking their personal safety into their own hands. All right, well, that's it for this week's episode. As always, I hope that I've given you some things to think about. I would love for you to share your thoughts with me about this episode. Also, I would love to know if you like the mini episodes better. Before I wrap up this week's episode, I wanted to give you a quick reminder to make sure that you check out my website, skipstacticalsolutions.com, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram at skipstacticalsolutions.com. And oh yeah, you can also follow my YouTube channel, which is Skips Tactical Solutions. The links to all pages are going to be in the show notes. Once you get to the pages, make sure that you turn on post notifications. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. And remember, episodes will be coming out every 2 weeks now. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast if you enjoyed it. And I hope that you'll join us for the next episode.